Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for the best comic book podcast in all of YouTubes and the interwebs. It's the Comics Aficionados. We got a great panel. We got a lot of fun topics to talk about. We're going to talk about the DC creator exodus going on right now. We're going to talk about Marvel getting back to business as usual. We're getting a lot of reboots, changing creator teams after a handful of issues and the whatnot. We're also going to talk about some of the new DC creative teams, some of the new titles, obviously the Green Lantern team. What's going on with that? Is Geoff John's done? Is the Ray Fisher controversy going to end up staying his reputation moving forward? And we'll talk about a few other things. There is a ticker at the bottom if you want to know what we're going to be talking about, and you can see what you missed if you want to go back and check it out. Obviously, like I said, we do have a wonderful panel making his return to Thinking Critical. The man with a plan. He's about to shoot on the industry, people. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me back on. Happy New Year, everybody. Nice to see you all. Let's get it on.
Absolutely. Also, with us, making a rare appearance on the Comics Aficionados. He's not always available on Saturdays. We got Eric Braid in the house. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
We're all doing excellent. Obviously, also with us is El Percherino himself, the Poobah Comics. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you and Eric, and yeah, great to be here.
Absolutely. And then next, we just recorded This Week in X-Men. He is salty as ever, folks. How you doing, Todd?
It's Saturday, and I'm sober, so I'm actually doing all right.
There you go. Ooh, it's an unexpected Saturday sober. And then last but not least is the curmudgeon of Critical, Pele. How you doing?
Yeah. It's snowing, and I'm probably not going to be able to get to go anywhere, so I'm here anyway.
Here in the Philippines, I can tell you that. Now let's get right to the show. I apparently I had a little breakout there. I apologize. Let's get right to the first topic before my audio kills it again. Now we do have a bit of a DC creator exodus. We knew that Geoff Johns and Scott Snyder and some of the big writers were taking work outside of DC Comics, but now it's really starting to affect the artists more specifically. We know Gary Frank is working on an Image product. Jason Fabok announced that he's working on an independent project. We know Greg Capullo is going back to his Creech series. The man has been associated with Batman and DC Comics for like a decade now. We also have, I think, Yannick Paquette finished up his exclusive deal with DC Comics. Jock and Francis Manupal are both rumored to be working on independent projects, as well as Tony Daniel himself. I don't know, Doc, you are more of a Marvel fan, but something that DC has been able to lord over Marvel for quite some time now is having first-rate artistic talent, most of the time easily eclipsing what Marvel has done. Are you shocked that they're letting all of these wonderful mainstay artists that have been associated with DC go and test the waters elsewhere?
No, I'm not. I'm not even the slightest bit, because Marvel is just, or DC is just copying Marvel's homework from 8 years ago. That they're literally doing the exact same shit that Marvel did in 2012. And it involves a lot of letting all the people that actually sell fucking comic books not sell comic books for you anymore. So no, it doesn't surprise me. They're in complete cost cutting mode. They're going to go cheapest possible trash, deviant art, Tumblr artist they can find for as many books as they possibly can. They're going to scratch their head and go, well, we hired them, so that makes them as good as Jim Lee, right? And then their sales will continue to tank. So no, it doesn't surprise me at all. They have the same idiotic philosophy that Marvel's had. They've just finally fully adopted it. And why not? Marvel's still on.
You used to be a super Marvel fan. You've been reading only DC for several years now. Does it start to upset you that you can see DC is definitely taking one step after another on the way to essentially becoming Marvel 2.0?
Sorry, did you ask me that?
Absolutely.
The only thing I can say is I have seen some of the art on the Future State books, and at least it's a little better than what Marvel was doing during the period that Doc's talking about. But it doesn't. I don't think it lends itself to long-term success when you take the people that sell the books that have kept you as close to Marvel as you are and just let them go, thinking that just replacing them with new artists, even if they're decent, I don't see how that's a sound business strategy. I think it's going to backfire because, like I said, there's artists, contrary to what the industry seems to believe, artists do sell books. And even if that artist is good, you open up, if you don't recognize the name, some people are just going to close it back up and move to the next one.
Is it the artist, though, and not just the character? Because it seems like, just like always, but even more so, they're just tripling and quadrupling down on Batman. So, if it's not Batman, it's a Robin, and, on and on and on. At least that's what DC seems to think.
But how many times does that have to fail before they realize that that's not necessarily the best strategy?
I just assume they're seeing the numbers come back and they're like, oh, Batman sells.
Yeah, the problem is it needs to fail. It is in their line. It hasn't really failed yet. That tends to be where they drag the numbers in. I do think that's short-term thinking. I think that it's going to pop. But, if you're looking at things in a 3-month view, you're like, oh, look, Batman has all the numbers. Do more Batman. I mean, sure. But I do think that does start to erode. I think people take a longer view of it. And it will show that. But I don't know if anybody's taking a longer view of it. You'd be surprised when I do those numbers videos, how many people inside the industry are like, wow, I had no idea. I'm like, huh, you probably should have. You're an editor. You probably should have an idea. I'm kind of worried you don't have an idea. That's strange.
Dude, so many of these people look like, act like future, like history started today.
Sure.
And then tomorrow, history started then. Nothing that happened before that exact moment actually occurred. They have all of the short-term memory of an ant. Well, a fruit fly.
Goldfish.
It's painful. It's like you could look at it a bunch of different ways. You get these people who are being paid, very low salaries, under 40K. And you're like, why aren't you doing financial analysis about your books? And it's like, I can't make rent. What are you talking about? And I get it. On the other hand, you would assume somebody who wants to move up in the career would do that kind of stuff. It doesn't take much work. If some goofball with a Pooh Bear avatar can pull this stuff, I think these guys can too. But, somebody should be doing it. It feels like one of those companies where a lot of people are looking around going, oh, yeah, it's probably good data. Somebody should do it. Not me, but
maybe that guy that, sorry, Perch, that you had high hopes for, the fruit named man that is now running their company, that has a history in marketing, should probably think about fucking doing that.
Yeah, you don't need to apologize to me. I think that if there's one clear thing that we can say over the last 6 months, it's like, yeah, that we should have seen. There's a lot of other things that you could have gotten an excuse on, but the marketing should have gotten better. And we can clearly see with March and April, like, what the hell? I made a joke of it. We're looking at solicitations yesterday, and so some of the comics have writer, artist, penciler on the cover as the credits. It's insane. The marketing aspect has been an absolute fail, and that is the background of Daniel Cherry, and he should have made that better. He didn't, and that's an embarrassment. I'm sorry.
There are a few creators who can do the whole writer, artist, the whole penciler, writer, all that stuff, and I can name them all. I can count them on one hand.
Oh no, Bailey, it's literally on the cover. It says penciler. The word penciler.
Yeah.
This isn't. It's not somebody combined. It's literally they wrote writer, penciler, and inker on the cover. I'm not even making this up.
Did you see that they announced that Batman: The Dark Knight was a special extra size 26 issue or 26 page issue?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say this. once again, I will again reiterate my comment from when Daniel Cherry was hired. If he was any fucking good at his job, he wouldn't be working in comics.
There you go.
You don't know how much
catch-all.
they're offering.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They might actually believe in their product. Might.
You think you'd be pretty surprised what Brian Michael Bendis' page rate was?
No. I understand all that. My point is, if they're any good, then all the big industries that he did work in before that make a shit ton more money and have a lot more operating capital, like professional sports and video games, would have given him more money to not leave them.
I bet you Warner Brothers generates more revenue than
Yeah, but DC doesn't.
I'll bet his salary is easily north of $750K a year.
Oh,
Plus a lot of incentives and bonuses and other things. I'm betting he's clearing about $2 million.
Okay.
I'm with you. Your logic is sound. I'm just betting they spent a lot of money, which is, again, why in the hell is the marketing bad?
Well, I mean, the sports world is filled with people that wildly over-evaluate and overpaid talent. So
yeah,
media is too.
Sure, he should be doing a better job. Whether we should be seeing better marketing, whether he's paid $50K or $2 million, he should be doing the marketing should be way better than this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I've actually talked with fans and people that are kind of in the peripheral of comics. You know, they occasionally buy a comic. They occasionally buy Batman, issue of Batman, stuff like that. And they honestly thought that DC had already gone out of business because they had not seen anything from DC Comics in so long. And I'm like, well, no, they're still making comics. You know, I was like, yeah. But
fans didn't realize DC Comics were still publishing comic books.
Yeah, well, they're very, very casual fans, is what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that that occasionally do read an issue of Batman, and they just hadn't seen anything from DC in so long that they had, thought that they just stopped publishing comics, and just were only doing movies and TV shows. So.
Sorry.
No. I think this is crazy. I think that there's a lot of stuff. Whenever you're complaining about comics, or there's stuff that is your opinion, there's stuff that's not. I think you can look at these comics. It's been interesting to me to watch Future State and see a very wide view of what people like. Like I've never seen a launch before where there was so many different opinions on what the best comic was and what the worst comic was. It's very, very mixed, which is interesting. After 2 weeks, I wouldn't expect that. We'll see how all that shakes out. I do think you got some really amazing art talent, and you're letting them kind of wander away. From what I gather, it's mostly that people. It's like what Jason Fabok said. They're just not getting back to them. There's it's weird. I think that silence is bad coordination, and I think that's going to hurt them down the road. There's some really good talent there that is going to get established doing work other places. I think there's going to come a moment where DC's like, "Ooh, I want to get my big event going. Here, let's call up Capullo. He'll be perfect for this." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I've got 3 years worth of projects. I'll get back to you in 2025." And that's going to hurt what they're doing now. They're getting probably some cheaper art talent out of the mix, and all the rest. But I think that lack of coordination is bad, and I think that's that kind of combined with some of the lack of marketing. It's weird. Wes and I chatted right when they came out of the pandemic. It's like, oh, they've got a clear road to do some strong things and really be powerful, and they've kind of got their own future in their hands with some of the distribution. I mean, they were lining a lot of things up, and to see it go somewhat sideways on the marketing specifically and some of the intercompany coordination, that's weird. It's very. I think this comment here. Thank you, Kenneth. By the way, it's. The difference here is that Jim Lee and Larson, they had a plan. They were going somewhere to do something, and in this case, it just feels like it's like, well, nobody will return my calls. I want to get paid for this comic. I better go find my own thing. It's sadder.
It feels like anything is Jim and Todd and Mark and Rob and all those guys that left in the Exodus. They had a plan. This current Exodus from DC is guys saying literally no plan at all is better than staying here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they gotta. If they're not getting back to them, they still have to pay rent. They gotta get money somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like literally, no plan at all is still better. It's still an improvement.
Well, these creators are saying, I guess I have to make my own plan. Like I'm hearing nothing. I need to make rent. I guess I'm going to do a crowdfunded book. There you go. Or I guess I'm going to do this thing at Image I've been thinking about for 5 years. I think there's a lot of people who want work. I mean, Jason Fabok clearly wanted more DC work. Gary Frank wanted more DC work. That's the weird part. I mean, the crazy part in all this is we're not getting 3 Jokers 2 this year. That was something I think that people at DC thought was a lock, and that clearly is very much a question mark. Now I don't know how much that has to do with Geoff Johns. I guess we'll talk about that in a bit. But that was their best-selling graphic novel this year, or in 2020. One of their top books. I don't know. That's going to hurt if they had a plan in late 2021 for a sequel, and it's not coming.
In fairness, though, I do still see copies of every issue of 3 Jokers sitting at my LCS. Mm-hmm. So while it was a big seller for DC, I don't see the sequel being anywhere near as successful, just because of how many copies are still sitting in an LCS.
Well, you had to order like 50 copies of each cover in order to get the special ones.
Okay, I mean,
that's a reason why there's a lot sitting around. Is all I'm saying.
I get that. No. I get that part. My point is, I don't know if the stores are really going to spring for the special ones next time with how much inventory they still have.
It might. I mean, the big play for that one is you look at the sales on Amazon. I mean, it tracks higher than any other Western thing right now. It's doing very well in trade. It's probably overperforming a bit. And
what's the trade price? Because I'm betting you could probably still buy the singles for less.
I don't know.
It's a hardcover. I do.
It is.
So
yeah.
Off the top of my head, it's like 30.
Anyway, sorry, but we got Kenneth. Thank you, Wes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kenneth Allen, for supporting the channel. $5 super chat. It does might have some ripple effects similar to what the Image 7 leaving had on Marvel, especially their Spider-Man and X-Men divisions. Now, we do have another super chat, and I think this one's interesting. This is from Len Kramer. This is a bit off topic. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate you supporting the channel. Question: if you had to read Vita Ayala, gun to the head, which character would you like to read her write just for laugh at the same time? Now, you can laugh at me, but when I did my top 10 stories of 2020, Vita Ayala was firmly at number 10 with her Wonder Woman story within the Wonder Woman, I think it was 750 special that they did. Now, it was only 10 pages, but it was 10 pages of damn good story. So I don't know why she isn't on Wonder Woman. If you want to establish her on a book, she did a great job of Wonder Woman. I don't know why they haven't given her a character like that she's obviously proven that she can write. I don't know, Doc. Who would you like to see her write if you had a gun to your head?
There's no characters that I like that I would want to put her on. Because I don't want to punish characters that I like. But I'm thinking, you know what?
You
hate? You know what? I would love to see, just for the complete trash fire that it would turn out to be, is her on something like, I would like U.S. Agent. Because the absolute caricature of a character she would turn that into would be almost like 1980s what the level absurdity.
So bring Nomad back or something like that.
Yeah,
Madcap.
Yes. D-Man. Put her on a D-Man miniseries.
Sounds good.
I could see with U.S. Agent. It starts out the splash page, and he's in the kitchen baking cookies, and it just goes downhill from there. It's always like, so random kind of shit with her.
There you go. Perch, is there someone you think that she could succeed with besides Wonder Woman?
Besides Wonder Woman, I mean, put her on Wonder Woman, for God's sake. This is a weird part when you see one of these creators who actually does a reasonable take on someone. Like, what are you doing? It's the same thing. Mariko Tamaki was the highlight of the last several years was Wonder Woman of what she did. That we finally found something that seemed to click. Like, why are you then moving them on? I don't get that. Like, put Vita on Wonder Woman. I think it seemed to work out well. I don't know. I think any creator could do a good take on it, but it feels like they line up creators with the weirdest possible matchings, and then you get very, very strange stuff out the mix. Or maybe it's like, hey, let's we do want more panels of cooking. Let's get Leah Williams to do the X Factor. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, it doesn't fit those characters and what they're doing and the pitch. I don't understand. And
that ties into the kind of like the exodus we've been talking about in the past, how editors leaving and not having relationships with artists, and now we're seeing the artists leave or not get called back, and it's never really an artist or a writer saying, I want to do this book. They're just getting a job usually. And even the ones that we really like, they were probably forced on the book more than they actually wanted to do it.
Yeah, we just had the interview from Magda Saggio talking about Ginny Hex, probably her best work, certainly at the Big Two to date. You could tell she did not want to write that character.
Well, that's probably a good thing sometimes, editorial control, limiting people. Actually, sometimes when you can do anything and everything, it doesn't really play out as well as it should. And doing something you want to do, or finally getting to go to that team that you always wanted to play for, doesn't always work out.
Well, you did see that there was a comments from Tom Brevoort a while back talking about, and C.B. Cebulski was kind of weighing in with no pun intended, with agreement. Cheap shot. It is that you don't put writers and artists who really love the character on those characters. You keep them away from it. Anybody who's a huge fan can't tell a good story, is their point of view. And I don't agree. I find that very strange. I think if you have somebody who's super passionate about a character or project, you should try and move things around, including editorial if you need to, in order to get that passion out onto the page. But if there's a strategy of saying, hey, if somebody's a huge super fan of Spider-Man, keep them away from Spider-Man because they'll put too much passion out there into the comic. I don't get the reasoning. It's not that Marvel's trying to protect somebody's feelings if they get taken off the book and it crushes them. There's some other thing at play, but it's a weird approach. I mean, they need to line up people with the books they actually want to write. That would go a long way.
So I do want to say thank you very much to Len Kramer for the $5 super chat. Great question. That was fun. Yeah, let's find the right comic book for VIL and some of these other creators. It feels like they're being set up for failure over and over again. Now, just kind of getting back to the creator exodus before we move on. I don't know, Pele, as a more cynical person like myself, do you think this is just, DC Comics is resetting and there's a little bit of dysfunction as they kind of get the ship righted and get back to functioning order? Or do you think this is just the way that DC Comics will be for the foreseeable future?
I think that as money gets tight and as people kind of shy away from buying into the overpriced new comics, we're going to see a lot of belt tightening, and I don't think that it's going to change anytime soon unless they just stop publishing comics altogether. But one thing that I can say is that they can stop that tailspin at any time, and that's to trim, like we had talked about before, trim back to a dozen books or whatever, 15 books that are just the best that they can publish with the best people they can get. And that's really it, and they don't seem to really want to do that, or they're very reticent about, cutting that far back. But, it's they're going to choose one way or the other. They're going to choose to publish 40, 50 books that are all crap, except for like the top 2, or publish just a few books that are premium. And I don't see any other solution besides that, because the money is just not there right now. And it's or they change, or do something radical like actually take comics back down to $3.99 again. But
they are going monthly at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy about that.
They got to get. I'll be perfectly honest.
I know. I'd rather see
not
$2.99 or $1.99.
If it's not under $2, you're never going to get it. It's that simple.
Yeah. But now $3.99 is just a wet dream. It's like everything is $8, $10 premium, square bound, whatever with, extra
sized pages.
Oh God!
Yipty fucking do, and you'll never get a new reader.
I know it. It's sad. It really is. That's unfortunately, the mindset right now is that, oh, we need more money. We need to charge more. Oh no, that's not. No, guys, no.
Marvel's been doing it for years. Why not us, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
And they win.
DC isn't Marvel.
Fellas, and say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for the $10 super chat. He wants to give a special shout out to Eric. So cool, they call him the Breen. I read the entire Avengers Korvac saga. Outstanding. One of the best Marvel stories I've ever read. Thank you, sir. Obviously, Eric did join me for just to talk about his favorite comic story of all time. It was Avengers Korvac saga. Are you happy to see this, Eric? People are discovering the story.
Thank you, Kenneth.
It's a great story. I mean, Hellcat's been awesome in it. And oh wait, you're talking about something else. Sorry, no, yeah, absolutely a great story. I mean, Avengers: The Korvac Saga is probably one of the best. I don't know. It battles one of two runs on Avengers as being kind of the most epic.
What's the other one?
There's this. It's less than one storyline. There's this long run where we get to the Masters of Evil taking over the mansion, killing off everybody, or trying.
When Jarvis goes heel.
Yeah, Jarvis gets mad.
Ooh.
I like that run. I think it was a great use of villains and everything else. But that was more just a time period in comics. The Avengers Korvac saga was just a great story.
Mm-hmm. I agree there. It was a rare opportunity where the creators were kind of, passionate about what they were doing. You could tell by reading it, and they were allowed to do what they wanted to do. And something we don't see now with, editorial by committee anymore.
One that had 10 issues of setup before the 10 issues of the storyline, and in today's comic industry, when do creatives have that long to flesh something out?
Especially at Marvel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
20 issues. That better be a weekly series.
The third or fourth creator.
I mean, you'd see it at DC, but in 20 issues now, you'd have to squeeze 4 or 5 universe-shattering events into those 20 issues.
Mm-hmm.
In the Batman Who Laughs. We need the Batman Who Laughs saga, right? Justice League. The Batman Who Lols saga.
Well, he could have come in and just taken out Korvac like that.
Crisis on his Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah. I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for supporting the channel, and thank you very much for Eric Breen for joining me and talking about his favorite comic book. Also, I did a video yesterday for the 80th anniversary of Hawkman, where Tim Board from the Hawk World website joins me. And if you're looking to discover some moments in Hawkman history that are great, I definitely recommend that video as well. Now, I think we have probably run the gambit on the DC creator exodus. Does anyone else have anything to say before we move on to the next topic and talk about Marvel going back to business as usual?
Guillaume March is another artist that's doing an image book, I do believe. And goodbye. He was very good. I like him a lot.
He was doing great on Batman.
Yeah. I like his art. I liked him over at DC quite a bit. He's been there since Gotham City Girls or whatever that was called.
Sirens.
Yeah, thanks. So even all the way back then. So he's been around a while, and he's stretching out.
So let's move on. Let's talk to Marvel. Let's talk about Marvel getting back to business. This week, we obviously had the announcement of Miles Morales' Spider-Man Clone Saga. Apparently, according to Saladin Ahmed, it's going to be more controversial than the much loathed and hated Spider-Man Clone Saga story. We also had a reboot. We had Jane Foster Valkyrie. Then we got King in Black, the Valkyries, I think. And now we're getting the Mighty Valkyries coming out of that. Feels like it probably could all been one series. Constant reboots is the name of the game. Obviously, Marvel is getting back to it. And we have a new creative team on Champions after 5 issues. Eve Ewing apparently is exiting Marvel. We don't see her announced for anything else. She's not promoting Marvel anymore on any of her social media or websites. And I don't know.
So it really wasn't for her.
No, really. First, how long is it going to be until Marvel's putting out 130 new comics a month?
I mean, we're headed there. I don't know. I don't get how you go through last year and you come to the conclusion let's continually relaunch Valkyrie. I mean, there's just I don't know. I mean, it's pumping comics out. I think they've established a new kind of normal where 20K as a average sale number is a good number, and that's what they're comfortable with. Keep in mind, we've got the Hellfire Gala, which will be a big event. We've got the Rebirth event, which will follow the Avengers storyline. There is a Spider-Man event promised for the end of the year. There is a Thor event promised for the end of the year, or somewhere in that zone. And those are all going to come with more limited series and more tie-ins and everything else. So, I mean, 130 comics, probably not 100. Yeah, I think it's reasonable to believe that we're going to get to 100 in a month.
That will be number one every week.
It's too much. It's just way too much. I mean, look at it this way. Forget for a moment the fans and if everybody wants those books and the sales numbers and all the rest. If you're just Marvel, you can't reasonably put out that amount of books in a professional, good way, and have it marketed well, have them described well, have it. You can't manage that volume of books. You've trimmed your staff slightly. There's likely more trimming to come. You're not going to be able to put out any kind of reasonable quality product. At that point, you're just randomly kind of throwing comics out the door and hoping somebody buys them. This isn't healthy, and it's going to reset the industry lower further. This isn't good, and I don't know why they're doing this.
Make me swoon.
We do have a super chat from Lane Kramer, $5. He says, if Marvel could get Geoff Johns for a run, if they had the money on a book, do you think he might be a good choice for Fantastic Four? Obviously, Geoff Johns wasn't Marvel. He had a pretty darn good run on Avengers. I think he would be excellent in Fantastic Four. Obviously, his cosmic work on the Green Lanterns was among the best of his entire career, if not the best. So I think he would fit the Fantastic Four like a glove. Although you could say that with what Donny Cates is doing with Venom is almost his version of what Geoff Johns was doing for Green Lantern with Absolute Carnage, King of Black, kind of moving through what like Sinestro Corps into Darkest Night. I don't know, Doc. What do you think? Is Geoff Johns, would he be a good fit for Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four, maybe. I mean, Geoff Johns has already been at Marvel. He was there. He did the Red Zone arc on Avengers before they got rid of him to bring in Bendis on it. And before Bendis, Bendis the Marvel Universe. So I don't see why he'd go back, but if he got a chance to play with the Fantastic Four and maybe make it a competent series, I think he could. I don't think he'd want to. I don't think he would tolerate the kind of editorial interference nonsense that would be coming, and Dan Slott backbiting him on social media for everything that he wipes out that Slott thinks is super innovative that he's added. But no, I mean, I could see it. He was good. I mean, he was good on his Marvel stuff previously, but I just don't see him ever coming back there. I don't.
This is a what if, Doc.
Okay.
Don't you like what if comics?
I do. I prefer, to be perfectly honest, I'd prefer. I wouldn't even want to read the comic. I would just want to watch the interplay between him and Joe Quesada, because my understanding is those two don't get along after Geoff left.
I can believe that one.
That would probably be much more entertaining than whatever they'd put on a page.
Yeah. So thank you very much to Lane Kramer for the $5 super chat. Very much appreciate you supporting the channel. Now, Doc, obviously you are a big fan of Marvel Comics. Do you see things getting back to business as usual? Obviously, they trimmed down the line. It's reboots and everything, right? It's going to be, how many events are we going to get in 2021? Like 15?
Something like that. There used to be a major event every couple of years. Then it became every year. Then it became 2 a year. And then there were line-wide events that weren't universe-wide events. And they started making the universe-wide events bigger and spinning out of the line-wide events. And, I mean, they're kind of doing that now. But they're also doing like 370 goddamn events. Every fucking day is another event at Marvel. They don't even wait until Wednesday. They're like, oh, it's Tuesday, Monday evening. Here's our event for Monday evening. You're not printing a comic right now. How are you making an event? No, it's back to business as usual. They got a bunch of incompetent creators with even less competent editors trying to produce comics that nobody really is interested in because they forgot what anybody actually buys superhero comics for.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, it's back to usual. It's we're back to probably. I think there's going to be a couple aspects that are decent still, but otherwise we're back in 2018.
I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Alley for the $5 super chat. Wes, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you mention Geoff John's wanting to write an Iron Man run? Not that I recall. I don't think I've ever read that. Has anyone heard that? Is Geoff John's like one of his dreams to write?
Yeah, there was an interview where he said he always wanted to do something with the character. That was a while ago, though. And I mean, the challenge with Geoff Johns and all this is that he's getting, for lack of a better word, he's got a career arc that's now Hollywood based, that is producing shows and everything else. He's not going to come back and full time write comics. Unless, but here's the problem.
He has to crawl back to it.
Yeah, unless he actually run out of the industry. Which
he's going to get traction and have to come back.
Yeah, the challenge though is if he's run out of the industry for that reason, none of the big two are going to hire him either. So then he is doing something at Image and all that.
Well, that's funny. Image is
yeah.
They're maybe stricter sometimes than Marvel and DC.
They are, but yeah, we'll
in their special way. I mean,
in a special way, yeah.
Not like in a corporate way, but in a internet social media way. It feels that way, at least.
It does.
I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for supporting the channel. We also have a $4.99 super chat from Admiral March Hare. Been with us since the beginning. Avoiding the events, my back issue collection is growing. Just scored a top 10 grail of mine. Marvel Spotlight number 2 on New Comic Book Day. Pele, it's Marvel Spotlight number 2.
I'm sorry?
Marvel Spotlight number 2. Should that be on somebody's bucket list?
Absolutely. Werewolf by Night first appearance. That is one. It's a really hard book to get in high grade. I mean, it's square bound, and those are notorious for having spine issues.
Yeah.
And it's also a book that was bargain bin material for like 40 years, and kind of on the peripheral of being valuable, but not. And so they weren't treated very well. It's but now high grade copies of that are just exploding, and I've been very fortunate to get my hands on several of them over the years and put them back. But that is like, it's going to happen. Marvel is going to push horror into the MCU, and that is one of the top 3 characters that will, now that Morbius is out of the box, I don't think Werewolf by Night's going to be very far behind him. But and also it's a good read. Those are really entertaining. They're fun. They're not intellectual stuff, but it's a lot of really good action, and it's fantastic.
Classic creators too.
Yeah, the Plug covers, and I mean just some of the most gorgeous interior work on those, and but yeah, all that stuff, all that 70s horror, Marvel early 70s.
Just Marvel 70s anyway, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the Bronze Age for Marvel is just exploding out every
That's
direction.
it, people. Bronze Age all the way.
Yeah, it is, because the people, and I explain to people like this, the people that are just now coming into money, that are actually starting to get to be where they're comfortable, are people that think fondly of that era of comics when they were kids, and that is pushing the market. you know, and the Silver Age will always be there, Golden Age too. But those people that those comics were great when they were kids, they're getting old or they're dying off, you know, and it's not really the hot part of the market right now. The hot part of the market is in the Bronze Age. And
So
yeah,
we want to say congratulations to Dark Admiral March Hare. Sounds like you got a good get. Goodbye, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't mean like goodbye leave. I meant like goodbye.
Like that was a goodbye.
It was a goodbye.
Get out of here.
Yeah, that just buy the Werewolf by Night series too. It's fantastic. Tomb of Dracula.
Yeah, get them all. Get a 15, all that stuff, right? Or 30, whatever.
10.
10, yeah.
Get Tomb of Dracula number 10. You know, get them all.
And we do have another super chat from Wayne Kramer. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Do you think we could get a DC Marvel crossover? DC White Rabbit, Spider-Man White Rabbit, art by David Finch, drawing their butts. It'll sell 100K. What do you think about that, Yul? It seems like a money maker.
No, DC and Marvel. I don't think we're going to see anything with them for a while. That sounds fun, though. I love the get the lamest characters and put them together, or
and Dave Finch drawing asses. Come on.
I think that
would be good.
Yeah, the appeal of the draw here is butts. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was.
Can you have a DC butt-led comic without Nightwing?
That's kind of what Far Sector looks like in issue 11. If you've seen that cover,
I did see that cover.
I mean, look how much that Psylocke miniseries from Dave Finch with Dave Finch covers.
Oh,
look how what that goes for these days, and
Really?
all that is just from the asses.
Well, yeah, I've noticed a lot of when we're talking about reselling, all those Adam Hughes Wonder Woman covers that were out there are now really expensive. His Catwoman stuff.
Catwoman too.
That stuff
Batgirl.
was not hard to get. You know, I mean, it was out there ready for anybody, but now, you know, he's not doing stuff anymore quite so much. And along with all those other ones, you know, we see J. Scott Campbell, David Finch, really? That's the only one?
Oh, yeah. We can get,
how about just all the butt artists, you know, doing
the Dodson.
It's a butt anthology.
This is a Cho chapter, and then we'll have a Campbell chapter. And
you know, I mean, I'm critical of Cho because, you know, it seems like almost all the girls that he draws are about 20, 30 pounds overweight. But, you know, frankly, you know, I could get on board with it. You know, it's better than the little stick figures and stuff like that a lot of artists are drawing nowadays. So
I think I'd like to see an experiment, and again, it's not one the big two would do, but put out a book that's the most cheesecake style book you can. Just get that artist, put it out there.
A-Force.
See what that would sell. Yeah, A-Force. There you go. and just see what would happen. I mean, just make it the full-blown, not the swimsuit special, make it an actual comic with a story-ish, but just see what would happen. Because I do think it is, you know, as much as the comics industry at times would like to deny that there's people out there who buy this, pretty sure you put one of those books out like that, and, you know, whether people are shy taking to the register or not, that thing's going to sell 80,000, 100,000 copies.
I keep doing 5 covers.
And when it's super successful, I want a sequel for guys like me that are boob guys. I want the hits.
No, you do it all together. You don't make it just A-Force. You make it TNA Force.
Well, I highly recommend going out and getting that one shot that Milo Manera did, X-Women. That was
I already
cool.
have that.
Yeah. Just try it.
Who was the artist that did Psylocke in Ten of Swords, where she was basically a deflated balloon?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want that artist.
Google artist number 2.
No, I think I'd like to settle it once and for all, because it is there's a definite feeling in the industry that time's completely passed. People don't buy this kind of stuff anymore. They don't want it. Nobody would sell that. And I'm like, I just let's put out 2 comics and see. You know,
let's see the Gwen Stacy sales number when you had all the cheesecake covers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, 70s pervs were out there in comics like crazy, and they were doing, you know, stuff in the 80s and 90s also.
I'll tell you what, that Spider-Woman run, I cannot keep them. They just disappear as soon as they come up in the shop. You know,
those are not bad issues either. They're good reads too. That's the best part about them.
All I have to do is all we got to do is put them on the counter, show a few of the covers, and people just buy the whole run. You know, they're just sort of secretly, oh, I want this, and slide it over. But
don't change that costume.
yeah, it's
we are getting the classic costume here in a few months.
Oh, thank goodness. What red?
Hallelujah.
I mean, how do you get rid of red?
I do want to say thank you very much to Lane Kramer for the super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and stimulating a very fun conversation. Getting back to the business at hand, we'll kind of wrap up the Marvel stuff. There's not a whole lot going on there, but I don't know. We're going back to normal, right? That's all I can say this week.
Yeah, I mean, we have at least 4 established events and maybe a 5th branding one. Undoubtedly there'll be more. We're going to get just a ton of comics and a ton of relaunches. And again, with Valkyries, if you care about that title, and Marvel has said, we want to stand behind it, we feel good about it, we think it's important. Why 2 limited series? Why do you do a King in Black limited series and then you wander away for a month or less?
Why did they cancel the first series abruptly without ending the current storyline where they're on just to keep relaunching it?
Sure. It's like this isn't built for anybody actually reading the comic, because there's plot threads from that first run. Maybe nobody noticed, but they're still out there. They never addressed it. They're going into this new thing. I think there's some thought that, hey, we need to do this because it's going to tie into the movie, except I don't think Tessa Thompson's in the new movie, or we don't exactly know. The new movie's a year or more away. So, like, what are you doing on any level? What are you doing? It's just dumb planning, and I think it's all just indicative of just shovel the comics out the door as fast as you can, as many as you can, and we don't need to plan ahead.
It's entirely once again, it's entirely about getting issue 1 through 3 sales bumps from the variant ratios, and then after that, it doesn't fucking matter.
It's strange. Again, it's indicative of people who aren't looking at the numbers, because you see these relaunches every single time. You saw it with Captain Marvel. You see it with the smaller ones. They are eroding far faster.
The law of diminishing returns. I've been screaming it for 4 years.
Sure. Yeah, and the amount of overshipping and other stuff they have to do to get the number 1 sales up, the amount of money they're going to have to pay for additional variant covers to try and spawn it to spur that up. It's a no sum gain business, and it's dumb.
All right, so let's wrap up the Marvel. Anyone else have anything to say about Marvel getting back to business as usual before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, buy Beta Ray Bill when it comes out. I expect it to be awesome. 5-issue miniseries. That's the big thing, right?
Yeah.
Man, can Thor 337 get any hotter? Holy crap. That's insane.
Daniel Warren Johnson is going to, he's really great, but I think he's just going to really blow up real soon if he hasn't already.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I had something real quick. This is more of a what if that we were talking about before. If anybody at Marvel, it was Kevin Feige in charge of the comics now too.
He's the chief officer.
If he cared about the comics per se, what better time would there be to come in and just sweep up all these guys that DC is losing, and just put Marvel Comics back on the map for real collectors? Get these people in, get them on good titles, change the philosophy, and just get Marvel back to where they were 20, 30 years ago. Of course, it's never going to happen, but is there ever going to be a better chance to poach some really talented people?
You're absolutely right, but it would require Kevin Feige knowing fuck all about how to sell comics, which he doesn't. I mean, let's be honest. The guy has a pretty good eye for entertaining fiction and product, but he doesn't know how to sell comic books.
And he's got the wrong people talking in his ear.
Yeah,
as to where comics are heading and what comic buyers want, and that's painfully obvious. It's like. Just by going by the numbers of what the new heroes are, and just looking at the creative direction right now, it's like, really.
I kind of look at bringing Kevin Feige in to Marvel, to run Marvel, the same way that when they brought that Pepsi guy in to run Apple. Yes, he's perfectly competent, chief executive officer, but the only people he kept around are the people that don't know fuck all about how to sell computers.
Well, we don't know that he's made any changes. The pandemic happened.
Yeah, I understand that, but like the people that he still has in all the executive positions are the same people that have ran everything down. So any sort of advice on how to effectively sell comic books is coming from people that have demonstrated they have no ability to sell comic books.
Well, both companies are just absolutely convinced that it's just the characters.
Yeah,
who does them is superfluous.
I think it's even more than that. I think it's even more than that. They've convinced themselves that it's not even the characters; it's the names,
the brand,
and the design.
It is, but it's a bad choice. This was the lesson they learned from the early '90s: is that never give the creators power. It's got to be their characters and their IP, and that's what. And they have convinced themselves that the characters are what people show up for. And you could put anybody on Spider-Man, it's going to work. And then there is this other evolution of you could put anyone in the costume of Spider-Man, it would work. It's a Spider-Man brand. It's not the actual character even. So it is this migration, and I mean that's perhaps not surprising given who owns these companies, but I don't think it bears up with reality.
I do want to say thank you very much to You Murder That Guy for the 5 Canadian super chat. Yes to more titty books and good erotic storytelling. Daughter of Sumerian. Sumerian is great. Obviously, that's the new Conan line that's outside of Marvel. And also thanks for the new positive show with Skip. Thank you for enjoying that. We had a lot of fun recording that. There won't be a show this week because my son just got out of the hospital. We've been it's been very hectic in my house, and there's been a lot of news. But it certainly will be back the next week. And Skip is in the comment section. And thank you so much, Skip. That was a lot of fun to do. We will be back next week. And thank you for checking that out. You heard that guy. Now, getting on to the next topic, we are getting the new some of the new DC titles. We got obviously the March solicitations. Now we're getting April and some of those titles that we knew we were going to be getting. Jeffrey Thorne was going to do a Green Lantern run. Now we know what the team is. Yul Carter, it's going to be John Stewart, which we knew he was going to be the star. I think that's a terrific choice. But the other two are little. I'm not as excited for those. I don't think Teen Lantern, she's not a Green Lantern. She essentially stole her power. I don't see John Stewart working well with a criminal. And then Jo Mullins, I didn't even think she was a Green Lantern either. I thought she was in the future. But there are so many Human Lanterns now. We still need to flesh out Jessica Cruz, still need to flesh out Simon Boz. Guy Gardner is usually associated with John Stewart. Where's Kyle Rayner? Could they have picked a less exciting Green Lantern team for DC Comics?
Yeah, I'm not too thrilled with it. Although listening to Perch last night, the writer was saying how there's still going to be that orbit of Green Lantern characters out there. So it's not unlikely that we're going to see other ones. But as far as the main ones, yeah, I don't know. I've invested more time in Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz as Green Lanterns than I really feel I even, at least in my heart, than I even did with Kyle Rayner, because he was just too, when it happened, the old timers or the not as old timers were like either they jumped on or they jumped off. And I was kind of this refrigerator bit's too much for me. So that's going back. Going now, I would have rather seen those other characters. Teen Lantern, I guess it's probably like an appeasement to Bendis or something like that. I'm sure he's going to get paid. There's probably like
contract that DC can't admit that he has bad ideas and that recreating Riri Williams in the DC universe wasn't necessary.
It did feel just the same way, and then at the same time, he was doing like I don't like his character choices sometimes. Are we going off on Bendis all of a sudden?
We'll get there. Hang on. That's a special segment later in the show. We always, I think Yule's right. We talked with Jeff Thorne was great. I mean, he talked for like 2.5 hours. I think I would say this. Yeah, we'll get to his comment too, but I think that, of course, wait and see. We'll see what actually shows up in the pages. But I will say when he did that initial interview, he said some things that we'd see in the first issue of Future State, and we did. It was he delivered as promised. I think that it sounds like if you're a huge fan of Teen Lantern and you're coming into this book thinking you're getting Teen Lantern, you're going to be pretty disappointed. It sounds like it's this. I don't think Teen Lantern is anywhere in this book, and there's some confusion over the cover. We were puzzling about it last night. Like, if you look at the solicitations, that's the only cover that didn't have trade dress on it, didn't have a logo on it. And the solicitation says there's variants, and we know there are variants. So I don't think that cover that's shown is the actual cover, or it certainly doesn't seem like it. And the writer,
that is the kind of cover you use if you want people to hate your new character.
Yeah, the writer was very confused by that cover as well. Just, liked it. So that's a cool image, but that's nothing really to do with the first issue. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think that this book, thematically for me and everything now I've heard in the 2.5 hours last night, if you like Green Lantern Corps with John Stewart, it's going to feel a lot like that book. It's John Stewart focused with, he kept talking about 7,000 lanterns and that he's going to kill a bunch of them. So that you have that to look forward to.
I hope it's all the human.
Please kill off a bunch of the human lanterns.
Yeah.
No more than 5.
Yeah.
No more than 2.
So I remain optimistic about it. And then that comment that you had up there a second ago, we should get to the super chat, but that he made the statement directly, and he meant it both in the chat and also he wrote it down. It is that he is a firm disbeliever. He does not like writing in the comic, "You're the best, you're great. Oh, this character is amazing. Did you realize that?" This character, Joe, is the world's multiverse's best detective. He hates that stuff. His philosophy is show, don't tell. And that's mine as well. So I hope that's what comes across on the pages. He's been very, very open. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll see.
We know DC editorial has changed words in comics in the past without doing so on writers.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
King was not happy.
Jeff Thorne seems like a much more reasonable person on YouTube, where he's a massive douchebag on social media.
Which, by the way, he says out loud. I think he views Twitter as a venting location, and everybody can do what they want.
Then he needs to be Jeffy 3865.
That's not my style, but again, everybody plays differently. I just, in hearing him talk, like you said, his YouTube comments and everything else, as some Jamie is saying in the chat as well, he's a good evangelist for the book and the fans, and I do appreciate. You get into comics of the 70s, 80s, he can rattle that off like the best of them. He knows, like, he can go deep on 5 years later Legion and all that kind of stuff. And as a comic fan, I love that. I have way too many conversations with creators that have no idea that era even exists. So I give him a lot of props for that. And hopefully it shows up on the pages.
Yeah, hopefully so. The positive press that he's and positive word of mouth that he's given on YouTube almost makes up for all the negative that he's created as a result of his action on Twitter. So he's almost at a zero-sum game right now.
Doc, you've been known to troll on Twitter.
Because I'm not a fucking professional trying to sell shit.
Oh, hey, jeez, you don't have to bite my head off. I'm just saying.
You're
a troll too.
I'm an asshole, but I'm not asking people for money. I'm not asking. Yeah, I'm a professional
comic store owner. That's what I just say.
I'm a professional asshole, and I'm not trying to get people to buy things. And even on the rare occasion that I might have ever considered that, I'm not doing it on other people's dime with other people's characters.
There you go. So Everett, Todd, thank you very much for the $2 super chat. Put a cosmic lantern ring on Alan Scott.
That blows my mind.
Why did it happen?
I don't know. I always think of Alan Scott as, like, I kind of joke that when people are hating on new characters or costume changes, they must have really hated Hal Jordan. They're like, my Green Lantern, he can't affect wood, So I don't know, a cosmic ring on Alan Scott's kind of crazy.
Wait, quick question, because I honestly haven't been paying any attention. Do we still have like that whole gay Alan Scott from the New 52 thing, or did they retcon that?
There was that 80th anniversary issue where they brought that up. But I don't know, because that's just an anniversary issue.
Okay.
So he is gay.
Oh, it's still the new 52. Alex. I couldn't keep track.
Who knows?
It's all true.
That's right. Yeah,
we're gonna have to give up on New 52 era, post-crisis, pre-crisis. It's like in the giant soup, he's still gay.
Okay.
But Perch, isn't it with the Omniverse now? Can't
he likes wood now?
The Alan Scott that has the two kids, can't that version exist simultaneously with the gay Alan Scott from
That's right, and they can get together too.
They can. God, yeah,
or check out a threesome with Alan Scott's wife too.
Listen, guys, you don't want to give $1 million ideas away here on the channel. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Wait, so if you bang yourself from another universe, is that
enough?
That's crazy.
I would have expected that from Pele.
I believe the way they're playing it out is that he came out of the closet later in life, so he had his kids, and then he was gay, and so that's kind of the storyline, kind of merging of this whole concept.
No, it is not really.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so he's doing an Iceman more.
I guess. I mean,
that's only because Jean Grey isn't around. You know, it
took Jean some Grey's time for him to realize.
We'll see what Venditti does with him in JSA.
It wasn't upon meeting his Alan Scott gay partner guy until he just realized it on his own. Wow.
It happens. Wild. All right, so you killed the Green Lantern conversation. We're moving on.
Sorry.
Green Lantern.
I don't cross promote my stuff, but it is worth listening to him, and especially if you're a big Green Lantern fan. I mean, he was whipping out names from 15, 20 years ago of just rando Green Lanterns, and then kind of in the same breath saying, and by the way, the people who you suggest show up in the book. Because like people are throwing out names like, hey, make sure this Green Lantern get in. Then I didn't recognize some of these people. And Thorne was like, oh, yeah, that guy. And he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to kill him, though. We'll see what happens. But I think that run's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think that cover is like just a crazy misstep. And I don't know why you that's not a #1 launch comic cover. That's the challenge there. But all this sums up to Joe and Jeff and I launching our City of Bruce comic. That's where we're going with all this.
No, you're giving away $1 million ideas, Perch. You're not supposed to do that. You don't want to give away for free what you can sell to DC Comics. They will print anything nowadays.
Yep.
So let's move on to something Green Lantern adjacent. We are having. I don't know. Is the news getting worse and worse for Geoff Johns? We know Ray Fisher is no longer associated with the DCU. He's been removed from the Flashpoint movie. He has not rescinded any of the allegations. He's going hard in the paint on Walter Hamada. And he's kind of forgotten Joss Whedon and the other producer. He's solely focused on Geoff Johns and laying out some pretty not nice accusations. Perch, is Geoff Johns, is he going to end up being done with comics or at least with DC after this?
I think things are grim for him. I think this isn't going away. I think it's picking up a lot of steam. I think Warner is. I think it was of the belief that Ray Fisher's stuff would kind of die down, and Fisher is digging in. So it's going to haunt him around his neck. I think that we'll see. We'll see him kind of shuffled into the background a little bit as they try and just move past the controversy. But it's definitely going to dent his career. And if it continues at this pace, then they're going to quietly separate terms with him, and he's going to disappear.
Yeah, I'm curious if he actually. The allegation was that he threatened Ray Fisher, and there's no proof of that from what I've seen. And basically, from what I understand, he told him, hey, if you don't grow up and put on your big boy pants, you're not going to work in this industry very long. And
that's not even a threat. That's just advice.
And of course,
right.
what does Cyborg do? He cries, and he goes on about they were mean to me, and Geoff Johns was mean to me. Oh, please, dude, for the love of God, it's Hollywood. If somebody's not being mean to you, they're not doing their job.
The whole thing is though, like I'm failing to see even one single seat that Ray Fisher has ever put an ass in.
Yep.
Now Geoff Johns, let's be honest, in Hollywood, guy's small potatoes. Yeah. He's a
Yeah, but he has like kind of a sort of lineage, He apprenticed under the right people.
Yeah, he apprenticed under the right people. He's got a name, whether or not it's translating at all is up for debate. But Ray Fisher hasn't put a single fucking ass in a single seat in his entire career, and he's not about to now.
Well, Ray Fisher has pretty much crushed his career in superheroes, stuff, any type of superhero work again. And it seems like he's bound and determined to take Geoff Johns down with him.
I think it's more than just superhero. I mean, the funny thing about this industry is even if you're completely in the right, like let's say all these things, everything he's alleging is true and it's terrible and Geoff Johns is a monster and all this, the people who complain get also pushed out of Hollywood. It's nobody wants to work with a person who's bringing allegations, true or false. And I think Ray Fisher's looking at this like his career is now pretty much on a salvage basis. Yeah, I mean he'll get a couple directors who are like, hey, I want to work with this guy because he has hard, but there's no
indie stuff. Yeah, he'll do some indie, art house TV movies work. And maybe a little bit of
a Netflix
streaming,
show.
Yeah, streaming stuff, and probably I don't know if he's one of the many that are also big into theater stuff. He'd probably end up doing that. And maybe he has a career rejuvenation similar to the way that Robert Downey Jr. did back in the day.
What? Wow. I don't know about that.
No, I mean on a much smaller scale, obviously.
Downey actually has talent. So
no. But I mean, when he came back after he had to kind of work his way back up with art house and shit like that before he got big again. But no, he's done. His career is essentially over, and he just needs to grab onto the only person available that he can take down. He won't pull. He's not important enough to pull Joss Whedon down. He's definitely not big enough to pull Amada down. So the only person left is grab Geoff Johns, because Geoff Johns is still relatively, for Hollywood, he's still a relative newcomer.
Mm-hmm.
I think this hurts him. I think in terms of Geoff Johns, I mean, well, one, he's not coming back to kind of run DC. That's not going to happen. He's not going to come back and put his fingerprints on that. I think any kind of upward trajectory he might have had with the DCEU and Warner Media is definitely halted. And so it's actually kind of the worst case scenario, because put it this way, if suddenly over the next 2 years, the DCEU does great, like they make all the right moves, the movies all are super successful, the new Batman blows it out and everything else, all that credit's going to be given to somebody else, not Geoff Johns. It's going to be given to the people who've been leading this division. It's going to cap him. If it fails and blows up, they're not going to say, well, let's do take 3 with Geoff Johns, bring him in. They're not going to have the money or the interest to do it. So either way, I think this is, it's not great news for Geoff Johns, and I would say he is on his way out. I would say
that Stargirl better be a hit.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge hit. Yeah.
I think more than Cyborg making a comeback in his career later on, will Geoff Johns be able to make a comeback later on in his career? Yeah, depending on which one he's. But Image has a comic with him if it's hot. Obviously Tony Daniel still wants to work with him, so
Johns will be fine. He'll be fine in comics because he has other opportunity. He has other options. Fisher doesn't.
Well, Geoff Johns going to take a major pay cut going back to comics.
Well, I mean, if I was just thinking, like, if you're looking at a star falling, Geoff Johns is probably the biggest star that's falling the farthest right now.
Yeah. Well, if he has enough of a name though, and he has enough talent, he won't just do his own label and write his own comics.
Possibly,
The man could make make a really good bank.
I don't know that he cares. That's the funny part. Is like, does Geoff Johns at this stage in his career go, I want to sink half the money I've got saved up here into starting my own label? I don't picture it. He seems like his ambitions are definitely elsewhere. I mean, I don't know his heart, but I just...
Well, I was thinking like John's books over at Dark Horse or something like that.
Yeah. Well, he was supposed to have an imprint at DC, and that's what Geiger is, right, Perch?
Yeah,
He's supposed to have an imprint at DC, and that's what Geiger is, right, Perch?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. He was supposed to do a lot of material there and kind of curate his type of comics, but it was there. I don't know. I could see him wanting to do a project once a year, twice a year. It's weird that I think Gary Frank got a lot of the criticism for being late, but it sounds more and more as time's gone by, it's more Johns that was late than Frank. But I think, it just doesn't seem like he has the same interest in doing this. So this idea like Geoff Johns is going to make his own label, it doesn't seem like he cares as much anymore. But I don't know. I may be wrong. It feels like he's progressed out and continue. He's a good spokesman. I mean, the crazy part about all this is if you look at Rebirth, he sold that concept really, really well back in 2017. And I think he knows how to kind of talk and engage with the fans at their level and make it work. And what's funny about that is that's sorely missing in comics right now. There's nobody who can do it at that level.
Absolutely, yeah. It sucks what's happening to him. We shall see if he lands on his feet, but he does have a production company, and that's what he's been putting a majority of his efforts into. But I don't know. I don't see the DCU doing like. Do you think the DCU can really recover at this point? It feels kind of flat.
When I'm trying to sell somebody on something, there is a newness factor to what they're doing come March, kind of like we're taking a breath and let's get back into it. And, you still like Batman and here we go and that type of stuff. But I'm not really excited it doesn't feel like there's this one cohesive story or plan that they have going forward, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because, reading 70s and 80s comics, Marvel, but they didn't all interconnect all the time. You don't need this like Joker or Batman Who Laughs character, ruining the Justice League for 3 years or anything like that. But at the same time, a bunch of miniseries, another Batman thing, another Robin thing, on top of everything. And we're not really getting a whole lot of other characters out there. It just seems like it's golden parachute time is what it feels like.
Yep.
So jumping on with what you were just talking about, Yule, we did get the April DC solicits, and obviously the information was trickling out. Doc, obviously we know DC is heavily invested in Batman, but it feels like, are they too heavily invested in Batman? They've cut down their line, but they've expanded their Batman titles.
Is that Doc?
I think Doc has left us.
That's
Doc
fine.
is gone.
There's not nearly enough Batman titles. We can
There's not nearly enough.
Yeah.
I know I have customers, they buy everything Batman. Everything. In fact, you know what? I'll get the other cover also. And there's plenty of people out there, but that's not everybody that comes in the comic store. And just because this one guy always gets Batman, again, it doesn't mean he's going to get every single thing. It's a little sad that they do this, but I do like Damian. I like Robin. All right. I'll read it a little bit, but if it doesn't really do it for me, I could see it not doing well for a lot of people.
Well, isn't that like the way it goes personally, the diminishing returns? Like, you have your flagship title, then you have your detective, and then your Batman's Grave. Then it just kind of it steps down. Eventually, they don't want a Batman title like selling the same amount as, I don't know, like the Wonder Comics line, right? Like the Wonder Twins comic.
There's definitely a lot of diminishing returns here. I don't think DC thinks they have it, but they're in a death race with X-Men to see who can pump out more books in that particular line, and somebody's going to win that race. I guess it's interesting to watch DC. I mean, the weird part about this is there are 37 titles in April that are in the core kind of DC universe. You got 22 of those are ongoing, 15 are limited series. They are creeping up again. I mean, it looks all likely. We don't have a JSA book. We don't have a Wonder Girl. We don't have Aquaman. We know Wonder Girl's been announced. We just don't know where it is. Aquaman is. If somebody's saying maybe there will never be another Aquaman book, I'm like, hey, there's going to be Aquaman 2. Trust me, there's going to be an Aquaman book. We just don't know when. And then JSA has been worst kind of hint. I mean, if that's intended to be a tease, there's no mystery there. We're getting a JSA book, but I think I see DC creeping back up to around 42 to 45 books a month. That's what it looks like where they'll be at by summer. And, it's a lot it's like a third to a quarter of that line is going to be Batman. And at some point, that's too much. But
what's interesting is they're doing that Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries, which I will absolutely be a customer. I will be reading that with my 5-year-old. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But it seems like they have like a new strategy, even though it's a digital first. Every 2 issues, I guess they're going to release like a floppy version of it. Is that going to be like the new normal, Birch?
It looks like it. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more kind of every other month shipping. We're going to be seeing, a couple of those books that are coming out are ones that were digital, like the Challenge of the Super Sons and the Batman Second Son are being printed. So that should be good news, by the way, for people who are really pissed that they're going digital. They are moving a little quicker to get those into print than they have in the past. But it's still it's a lot of. They're pretty much ramping with the belief that the new Batman Patterson movie is going to be huge, and that's the strategy. And if it is, then super. This is going to work out for them. Everybody will want Batman, but it's a lot of books. You'd never do something like this with X-Men.
They're look. It's too batty right now. Sorry, it just is. I know that they're doing do what works, and that is selling, but they need to have a strategy for when that stops working, and I don't think they do, because that's been their strategy for the past 10 years.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If DC is all bat all the time, and they're trying to cultivate a new breed of reader with Future State, doesn't it seem like a lot of Future State is taking a dump on Bruce Wayne Batman? And if that's what they introduce their new readers to, why would they be anxious to go read 15 other Bruce Wayne Batman titles?
Well, you see, as Tom King showed us very effectively, it's in the journey of tearing the character down that brings all the sales and excitement.
And as Marvel showed, the best way to capitalize on a bunch of super popular movies and television shows is by getting rid of all the exact same characters in the comic books.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No, your question is a good one. I think I think it plays into this idea that Future State is going to show kind of a dark and grim. Like, how could it possibly have gotten to here? And now we slip back into the monthly comics and we go forward with it. But again, kind of tying it to the only one that seems really exciting to me, and I know there's differing opinions. The Magistrate for me is a dead on arrival idea. I just can't stand it. I feel like I've seen it before, and I don't like it.
But we know that's going to happen moving forward. It's literally happening in the Detective Comics before Future State.
It is, and I have no interest in that journey, just for me personally. Now, other people will enjoy it and like it. I do find the path of what's going on with Green Lantern a lot more interesting. But if we're going to get so many comics, all these Batman comics, and they're all going to be building up this Magistrate idea. That's going to be a tough slog for me. I think they're really banking on the idea that the Magistrate's going to be the super overarching, amazing villain everybody's going to want to see. They're going to want to see Bruce torn down to his core and have to build himself back up, and also that this drama with the Fox family is going to be interesting, and people are going to buy into that as a second family. I'm telling you, everybody just needs to do City of Bruce. We need City of Bruce. That is the comic for our era.
And Batman finally loses it, and he takes over Gotham, because if I can't have Gotham, nobody can.
Oh no! City of Bruce is a whole different concept. It's basically revealed that we lean into Bruce's Playboy status, that every child in Gotham is actually Bruce's.
Perfect.
And so it's City of Bruce.
And he takes it over and calls it Bruceburg. And then he just has a harem.
Yes.
Yep.
City of Bruce.
David Finch does the covers.
The chat is so confused at this point. No, I'm telling you, this is credit to Joe. Joe originally came up with this idea. It is absolutely City of Bruce. All the children are Bruce. We're going to take the family to the next level.
It kind of leans into something Snyder started in the Dark Mirror, where it appears that who was it? The Gotham City. Gosh dang it. Never mind. Kenneth Allen, thank you for the super chat. The Batman book with Tom Taylor and Cooper. Is it set the Dark Knight Returns era? No. I believe that's Well, it's the Omniverse, right?
Mhm.
Who cares, right?
I don't think it's associated with the Dark Knight Returns or any of the Dark Knight work that Frank Miller did, though.
It's really time to start doing that, I think. Really. Let's start really perverting it more than it has been.
I think this is set in current continuity from what I understand. It's Bruce goes to Europe. So it won't be this, but
what is current continuity, though?
What's that?
What is current continuity?
Well, okay, fair enough. I think it's current timeline, more or less, because there was one of the notes in one of the interviews that talked about, now that he's lost some of his money, so that indicates it's kind of in where we're currently at with Batman. But what I want for this book is he's going to Europe. So I want National Lampoon's Batman European Vacation, and I want him to travel around Europe in a car.
I was just about to say that.
Let's
give us that.
and him chasing around some blonde chick that he can never quite find.
Exactly. Well, Timo, like Mr. Terrific, will be there in the car with him that they rent, and they'll like be just traveling through Europe and getting into wacky adventures. Like, bring us that book. This is why you don't hire me to be a writer of anything.
All superheroes should have road adventures. I think.
He's chasing Vicky Vale.
Yeah, Vicky Vale's in a car, and keeps passing him. Catwoman's in the passenger seat, like all clueless that he just wants to nail Vicky Vale.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Terrific's just the entire time just sitting in the chair, like shaking his head a little bit. That's all we do with him. Lots of just face panels. It'll be perfect.
Oh, definitely by Mitch Gerards.
Yes.
All of this would sell. All of this would sell better than what they're selling now. I just want you to know that.
I would pay so much money for National Lampoon's Batman European Vacation.
We literally our shit posting on these, Saturday morning chats are better story ideas than what DC and Marvel are actually producing for them, which is pathetic.
Can they at least be driving and have the woman in the car, the fast car, be Silver St. Cloud?
Yeah.
And then have Elmer Fudd pop up in the passenger seat. Yeah. One good Tom King Batman story.
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely, please. I mean, she's alive. I mean, I don't know. Kevin Smith never finished that story, so it's fine. I mean, who cares? Everything matters, so she's still alive. It'll all work out. Let's do it for sure. Yeah, Kenneth Allen notes that the description says Bruce is a seasoned Batman with scars. There was a Collider, or one of them did an interview that talked about him having to scrap by with less money. So it's close enough to where we currently are. So I don't know exactly where it is, but yeah, just
DC continuity is confusing for me.
It is. It's just Bruce driving around in a circle like Big Ben, Parliament, and just over and over again. Please.
I want to say thank you to Dark Knight's Death Metal for clearing everything up. Right. So, and thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for the super chat support. I don't know, Breen, you're a huge DC fan. Did Dark Knight's Death Metal make everything less confusing for you now that everything matters?
Sure.
That would have required me to read it.
Yeah, I did read it. I still am no more or less confused because at some point during that series, my eyes just glazed over. And then when I got to the end, I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. The heroes and villains are now on the same page. And everything matters and blah blah blah. And I loved the last page, but I'm not sure that any of this is going to mean anything going forward.
Everything is stupid and nothing matters.
Or everything matters.
Well, nothing matters.
Or everything and nothing matters.
If everything matters, then so does nothing.
Exactly.
Because nothing is part of everything.
Exactly, sure.
That's sad.
So one of my favorite things is that apparently everyone remembers everything now. Like that's in main continuity. I guess there's an Elseworld center of the DC multiverse that has its own thing going on. But there are characters that have died multiple times in continuity.
Right.
Like, are they all going to remember, like, their friends, like, failing them and being murdered multiple times?
I don't know. I don't want to be
going to have, like, 4 different origins for his parents' death that he remembers every single one of them now?
Sure. Like, there's, like, in the first, like, all the, there's, like, Zorro in the beginning, and now it's, like, whatever new movie they wanted to put in. It's just, like, a little difference. Oh, she wasn't quite wearing pearls. It was, whatever. As always, pearls. But yeah, little differences among all the deaths. I don't know. I would hate to be Wally West in that room. How's that?
Absolutely. No wonder he gave up being a superhero to concentrate on his family life. I can't do this anymore. I'm remembering too many stuff. How many times have I killed everybody?
Has Wally West done more things bad than Lex Luthor has done good? I think over the course of years, Lex Luthor probably has a leg up on that. But yeah, Wally West or Roy
Harper. Yeah, coming back is like, I have an arm.
Yeah, I've let so many people down over the course of all my lives.
my daughter that I remember grieving for, is she alive now?
I think Starfire has a lot of different incarnations also. Not necessarily does, but a lot of different versions of her. There's like Stupid Sex Her and the original one, and I'm sure there's something else. Plus, the YA stuff.
Goth mommy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait till she finds out how her kids let herself go.
I did what with the penguin? My goodness.
It's a tough road ahead. Yeah. I don't know. You're right about the limbs. Like Aquaman's like got a hand and not a hand. I mean, like I don't know. But
it's my hook.
It's not a harpoon.
This entire idea of kind of death metal and everything matters. It's one of those ideas that I think sounds good as a slogan. Nice. I appreciate the Raven call out. I think it's an idea that sounds good as a slogan to readers, but it's not an idea that makes sense in a comic. I mean, I don't think anybody, like, I've talked to several people now, and no writer, no creator can tell me what this exactly means to them. It's like, no, they're not going to do any stories touching on all these lives kind of crossing over. Nobody understands it. It's a slogan. And
it would have made a great villain if one character remembered everything and it slowly drove him insane. You know what I mean? But sure. Everybody remembered everything.
Oh, like Psycho Pirate?
I was going to say, yeah, that's Psycho
There
Pirate.
You go.
Right there.
It's Super Bowl.
In fact, that's been done. So
Simpsons did it first.
Yes. Yeah. Marv Wolfman did it first.
I mean, it seems like Future State is nothing more than a repeat of Tower of Babel.
Oh, I was thinking, remember 1 year later?
Yeah, it was that.
Oh, yeah.
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 Maybe more, but even still. But I see where you're going with the Tower of Babel also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll call
1 year later Tower of Babel.
Exactly.
So, as far as the Teen Titans go, obviously we got a Teen Titans Future State book this week. Perch, were you as confused as I was as far as what is a Psy Beast and what is Dick Grayson Nightwing still, or is he Deathstroke?
It's a confusing mess. I mean, it's a lot of ideas all shoved together. To comment those on the screen, yeah, DC seems to love to want to crap on the Titans. I don't know why in the world. It's just I don't. The problem is, this 1 year later concept where you show that everything's screwed up. That can work if you have a good plan. Again, I think Green Lantern, there's a question like, how did these guys? Where are the rings? How did this happen? Why are they fighting for their lives? Why are they? What's going on? How did we get here? And I recognize the Kuns, and I recognize some of these people, and I'm interested to hear that story. But by contrast with Teen Titans, it's like, oh, they're switching masks now, and this guy's in jail, and there's a Psy Beast, and like, what? Why? It's just
Starfire's in charge, and they don't seem to trust Dick Grayson. There's this big plan, but they won't tell you what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, okay, now if I think backward, do I want to know this story? I loved the Legion 5 years later bit where things were radically different, and Keith Giffen was killing it on some of the art and the mood. And it was like, I want to know how we got here. I want to know the steps. And Teen Titans, like, I don't want to know those steps. I mean, what? They're going to open up a school and they're going to suck as teachers?
Wally West is going to murder all the students, including all the
that.
There you go.
Right? He kills Wally West and Donna Troy. We know that, right?
Yeah. I just it's the mystery has to be one that you want to solve. And with Teen Titans, like, I don't want to know how Cyborg and Beast merged together. I don't care about that story. And
Why
then
do they
some
pass
people
out when they fly?
Shouldn't Wally be the guidance counselor?
Wally West is a.
I'm not even putting him into the janitor staff, okay? The custodial staff. No, thank you.
We got a bad joke from Black Cat.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I'm taking that off the screen.
When I laugh.
Very funny, Black Cat.
that is now canon, and it matters.
Yes.
Wait, they killed Donna. Yes, they killed Donna Troy. I'm sorry if I spoiled that for you, Putz.
Oh man.
Well, they do a montage of graves and her name's on one of them. But again, does it matter? I mean, it all matters, but does any of it matter? It's who knows?
Is Wally West Anakin? I don't know. What do you think, Braid? Is Wally West Anakin now that he decided to go and kill the younglings at the Teen Titans Academy?
Thank you for asking me a Star Wars question.
Well, never mind. Moving on. Is Anakin or is Wally West Anakin now that he's killed the younglings?
I was thinking Luke.
Yes.
He hasn't quite killed the younglings yet, so he's just kind of perverting them.
Or
So
he's
it's like
either
Kylo,
Yeah, I was gonna say he's either Anakin or Kylo, and I can't figure out which one.
Well, technically, Anakin, if he became Darth Vader, hunted down and destroyed the Jedi. He hunted down and destroyed the Teen Titans.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, that sounds about right.
So, Perch, what were your thoughts on this week's Future State? I didn't think it was nearly as strong as the first week. There were only a couple of comics I liked, Dark Detective and the Green Lantern book. Everything else I thought was either very average or subpar.
Yeah, I think I like last week's better. I like Justice League. I thought it was all right. I think, again, the weird part about Future State, and I want to say this is a positive, is that as I've done reviews on my channel, as I've looked on social media and everything else, there's a huge gamut of what people like and what everybody thinks is the best book, and that's intriguing. I don't know that DC will know exactly what to do with that, but seeing a lot of differing opinions on the best book, I mean, again, assuming these people are actually going and buying them, that's good news for DC. It's actually one thing Marvel never quite got whenever they would do these similar experiences and they would put a bunch of new books out. You didn't get fan favorites out of that. It's like everybody still collected the same books. And here I've seen people vigorously defending Superwoman, which I thought was a terrible book this week, but there's some people who absolutely love it. And cool. But nothing has been, I don't think any book has been absolutely wretched to me. I think there's been some books, they all, like the worst of the books are dull for me. And that's what Superwoman was for me, was just dull.
Absolutely. So I do have a super chat from Kenneth Dowling, $20. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Very much appreciated. Donny Cates is a superstar now. Absolute Carnage and King and Black are hits. I'm reading his Thor run and love, in particular, the Donna Blake story. You guys think Donny Cates is the best writer in comics, if not Marvel? I do not. I think that Chip Zdarsky is the best writer at Marvel. I think Robert Venditti is the best writer in comics, but those are my personal opinions. Now, he's certainly the most successful and the biggest money draw at Marvel. Doc, what do you think? Is Donny Cates the hotness right now at Marvel? Is he the best in the business?
I would say that up until our Absolute Carnage, he was the best guy going. I feel like if he was left to his own devices, rather than I think his success on Venom early on caused a lot more interference. The same way that Claremont back in the day had that X-Men success that eventually led to editorial being up his ass all the time. And I feel like Cates is suffering a little bit from that, and it's taken away some of his shine. But I think he is on his own, if left to his own devices, probably the best writer in comics right now, at least superhero comics.
My main problem with him is he's a great architect of he has great ideas. When it comes to execution, he falls down a bit. And I think the problem with that is he needs to learn how to take a class on writing narrative and dialogue, kind of get his ideas better onto paper. That's my criticism of him. Zdarsky is a master of that. He is a master of taking, this idea and getting it across with the most amount of impact. And I mean, I really like pretty much most. I like all of what Cates writes, but most of it is what I'd consider to be excellent. But yeah, he does fall on his face some. The King in Black has been fantastic. All of his Thor stuff has been great. But I'd rather read a Zdarsky comic, honestly, because it's just better written. The ideas may not be as great, but the execution is just better with Zdarsky.
What's your thoughts, Joel? Is he the man? Is he number one?
It's hard to go against that. I mean, the thing I like about Cates more than anything is that he really has at least an ear to the past. He's like throwing that stuff in, and it makes the older stuff a little bit more desirable. Not only as a comic store owner maybe selling it, but it's really cool when people start getting into the things I maybe have read. We can talk about it. I don't know if Cate, listening to Pele talk about it, I think what I would like to see is kind of like when Joe Quesada did Marvel Knights. I would like an in-continuity imprint with something Donny Cates, maybe give him one of the titles, and maybe choose a better cast than Hickman's X-Men writers.
Yeah.
And just have something really tight and cool, and that would be really neat.
Give him the cosmic. Give him all of Marvel cosmic stuff, and just have Marvel cosmic, and say, there you go, Donnie. You take off.
I mean, for me, it's like it's between Hickman and Grant Morrison. Even though I've been let down by Hickman lately, he's the only one that really excites me as much as GM. So that's just the way it is. But Cates is great, and for like the masses, yeah, I would totally say he's the best writer out there.
Well, when I read Donny Cates, it feels like we're in the beginning stages of Scott Snyder at DC Comics, where he's got these big ideas, but they're relatively small. But every time he does something, it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually he'll end up, it'll all kind of fall down under its own weight.
Yeah, I think that this kind of rush to superstardom tends to do very bad things with people who have fragile egos and personalities, and I think we've seen some blow-ups from Cates. He doesn't seem to handle critique very, very well. It's kind of odd. He's got a lot of people right now saying he's the best thing in the world, and that's tough. That wears on people, and I think all the signs of the personality imploding are there, and I think that's going to be a big detour. I agree. I do think with what Kenneth's saying here, I think he is the guaranteed moneymaker right now in comics. Maybe it's a better way to put it, because I think everybody has different views on what a great story is, but he is the one who's pretty much guaranteed cash. And I think that will hold for this year. I think there is a risk of overexposure from all signs. The Marvel Rebirth story is going to elevate him further to take more things, and I think that's there becomes a point where you push people so fast you burn them out. You get like the Bendis effect. I also say, this is just my own personal opinion, I think he's got a certain style that he applies to every book, and I haven't seen him really branch out and do very different things. And I think, like Bendis, I mean, there were plenty of people back in 2010, 2011 who said Bendis was the savior of all comics. He was doing amazing things we'd never seen before. And then it turned out like 5 years later, it's like, wow, I'm pretty tired of that dialogue at this point, and it's the same trick. So can Donny Cates evolve past that, I think, is the question, and show us that he's got more in the tank. But he's doing great work now, no doubt about it. It's just publishers always screw this up.
I feel like Cates' problem is that he never has a plan for what he's going to do after the thing he's focusing on right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't see a plan for Venom after Null. I don't. Like, there's nothing being hinted at in the set up in the background. And I feel like the book's probably going to end up like, just kind of listless and wandering and directionless for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know it says it's going to be a new age of Venom after in the King of Black. He's going to do something with the character.
Yes, but what? That's the point. Like, there's not even a hint of it.
That's why you got to read the event doc.
I understand that, but I feel like there's not even. I feel like this is like, we'll figure it out when we get there.
One problem that I have with Cates too, and it's not always the case, but one of the issues I have with him is he telegraphs his moves, and you kind of see what's coming. It's like I already can kind of see what's coming. At the King in Black, of how this is going to kind of wrap up, and it's going to be epic. But unless I'm totally off base, which has happened before, I can see where this is going, and yeah, he is kind of painting himself into a corner a little bit.
Does anyone else have anything to say about Donny Cate and his place in the industry right now? Doesn't sound like it. Thank you so much to Kenneth Dowling for supporting the channel. That's very generous of you, and I really appreciate it. Now, getting back to Future State. Now, you mentioned the Superwoman comic book, Perch. I thought the illustration was interesting. The art was pretty good for what it was, but it felt like if you wanted a Cinderella comic as a superhero, that's what you'd want it to look like.
Yeah. Again, they're trying different things. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of these books were commissioned a while ago, and I think they had different plans. I mean, for all we know, this Superwoman comic could have been, it could have been intended as a YA graphic novel that they decided to carve up and shove out this way. I mean, it's hard to exactly tell. And Future State's a lot of picking up the pieces of very old pitches, as we've heard now from several authors and writers, including Thorne last night. It's like this idea is like, what he's doing now is like almost 2 years old of a pitch. And so you're putting this stuff in. And so you're seeing a lot of writers now try and say, oh, we're going to keep going with some of this. Okay, now I gotta connect the dots. And that's going to be tricky.
I do want to say thank you very much to Doc for joining the panel. I know you got to dip out.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say before you leave us?
Everybody have a great weekend. And, yeah, have a great weekend. Read comics.
Say the line.
All right. Thank you very much. So Ted is saying, so what's the point of Future State? This is the point of Future State. They had a bunch of art and stories that they paid for. They couldn't call it G5 anymore because the entire brand was tainted. They thought they could trick people. They put out Future State. That's what it is. It's a too much break so they can relaunch the universe and not waste all that money that they paid for all that stuff with.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's right.
Maybe slightly more cynically said than I would do it, but yeah, I think that's on the whole right.
This is essentially what happened. So that's what Future State is all about. It's I wouldn't even call it a cash grab. I don't even think. Well, maybe it was. Who knows? I don't know, Paley. What were the customers at the shop? Were they impressed with Future State this week?
No, they've not been buying it at all. I know a lot of people talking about how these sales are so great in Future State. I've not seen it, but there are some shining stars in it. People are really hungry for more of the Swamp Thing. If they can go ahead and get forward on, move forward on that and get that ball rolling in that direction, then I think that that title will be in great shape. But
speaking of Swamp Thing, just very quickly, did you notice that in the April solicitations they've dropped the nomenclature of it being a limited series?
Yes, they have.
Which was surprising, right? Because that had a lot of buzz, and it came out. We thought it was an ongoing, and then in March it was limited series. In April, all that's gone, and it looks like it. I don't know either, but it's hard to tell if that was intentional or just somebody being dumb.
If that is the case, then they're smarter than I thought. And they've at least latched on to the one really bright part of this, and I think that will pay dividends for them in the future, because that's the title everybody's talking about as far as the people that I've talked with that are DC fans. It's like, oh, Swamp Thing, oh, I want more Swamp Thing, oh, this is great.
And for sure.
And it's the best title of the lot. And I've enjoyed it thoroughly, which is something I can't say about most DC titles now. So, is any more a future state going to reveal itself? I think so, but probably not in the current iterations that we're seeing, because it's too raw. A lot of the other titles are incoherent. They're poorly edited, and it's just not good. But I do think that we're going to see perhaps a take on Batman in a different way. Bruce taking some time off, at least, So as far as that's concerned, we may see the turn for Batman at some point in the next couple years. But anyway, yeah.
I do need to say thank you very much to Christian Bayaza for the $4.99 super chat. Why is everything over at DC at a multiversal scale now? Where do you go from here when the last rate was literally God, according to Snyder? That's a good question, Yule. Where can they go from here? It feels like there's nowhere to go. You can't get bigger than that.
Well, I mean, now that they're telling a story from at any time, or possibly that's the potential, I think you can go back. You can scale back down just by what time period you're referencing. I don't know. I've kind of had this feeling ever since Doomsday Clock that this was how it was going.
Yeah.
Everything exists. Nothing exists. All of it at the same time. If you are a fan of pre-New 52, old 52, I call it, why is it so hard for us to just rip off the IP character? I mean, there was the Silver Age started with all these new versions of those old characters. And I don't know what the outrage was like back then. Maybe Mr. Breen can tell us. What was the outrage when Barry Allen was the Flash?
Well, I was in college at the time, and
we were pissed. Let me tell you. I'm like, what's this bow tie? This is ridiculous. You see that crew cut he's sporting? That is stupid.
Yeah.
I agree. This is a very philosophical question as far as you need a direction, you need a goal if it's going to be something that's that big and massive, and it's really hard to go back. You put that toothpaste back in the in the bottle.
Wait, are you excited where DC's future is likely pocket universes where you got your Batman White Knight universe, you got your deceased universe, and you have all these things kind of happening at the same time, but they're not connected, and anything can happen because everything matters.
Honestly, the more we're getting into this, the less my excitement level gets. For every generation shattered that kind of looks cool,
it's a good book.
Not a whole lot of Future State is exciting me, and I know, despite their statements to the contrary, it's going to bleed into the regular books. And I don't know. I said, there's potential to do really well, but there's also potential to really screw this up. I know that's a vague answer, but
the glass is half full and half empty because everything matters, Bree.
Well, it's just, how many times? Myself personally, I said, how many times, do I want to start over with DC? Got real lucky in the mid '80s after Crisis, but each one seems to dilute the brand a little bit more, and I'm just not sure this time.
There you go. So I want to say thank you very much to Christian for supporting the channel. We do have another super chat from Chris over at Comics Exposed. Obviously, he was on the channel last week, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. Great show, Wes. Do you all have any thoughts about Image Comics creating their own shared superhero universe, yay or nay? I am 100% yay. I love shared comic the superhero universes. I think Marvel and DC's are unkempt. They're too big, and they probably can't put the genie back in the bottle. Pele, are you excited for an Image shared superhero universe? We also know there's going to be one at AWA as well.
I think that would be interesting. I'd like to see a world with Spawn and Invincible together. I'd like to see a world, where you'd have, Savage Dragon and Pit and the Max, and if they could bring back some of the old stuff like that, and I don't know if that would actually. I don't know if it would actually sell, but but I don't see how it wouldn't if those creators are on board and they're actually collaborating together. I just wonder how those egos all fit into the same tub at the same time. Because there's a lot of them and they're really huge. And are they going to like what other people do with their characters? So absolutely. I think that could be a problem there, because I don't like that. You can't do that with my character.
Well, and in Invincible, didn't they destroy Las Vegas or something?
Yeah.
I mean, just things like that you can't necessarily do in Spawn, let's say. I'm gonna really mess up New York.
Yeah, it would have, there would have to be some rules there, and I don't know if these guys really work well with rules. So as far as editorial,
reprints are really bad for that too, and heaven forbid if someone should sell something to another company. Yep. You're never going to see a Cyberforce with Wildcats trade again.
Exactly.
Perch, you got any thoughts on shared superhero universe over at Image? Are you a fan?
I think it's a good idea. I think it like you all have been saying. I think it's incredibly tough to pull off. I think Image, in particular, the DNA of Image is going to be really hard for them to do it. They're going to have to change a lot of how they structure comics, and unfortunately, kind of their model to pull people over and some of the names that they do and the money, it won't fit into this. So if they're going to curate it, they're going to have to create a separate thing. It's kind of outside their DNA. So I'm very much, I want to see it work. I don't think it will for Image. I do think what AWA is doing is actually quite good. I think funnily enough, if the pandemic had not hit and AWA had not launched with a storyline about a pandemic, I think that they probably would be twice the size now, because the quality of those books are actually quite good. It's just they're.
I will tell you that reading The Resistance, I was immediately turned off.
Yeah, it's bad timing, lots of problems there, but they did this. The shared universe they've set up is a good plan.
So thank you very much to Chris from Comics Exposed. If you haven't gone over and checked out his YouTube channel, you're nuts. Go check it out. He's got great content over there. And thank you to Lane Kramer for the $2 super chat. Could we get a Dan Jurgens Thor omnibus? What do you think, Perch? Is that in the cards?
I mean, sure. I talked about this before. None of us can understand what in the hell is going on with how they plan omnibuses and trades and everything else. I mean, stuff that's out of print. The one that is kind of on our minds right now is the John Walker trade, where pretty key storyline in Cap, obviously, and from what we can tell is going to be a pretty key part of the Winter Soldier Falcon show that's coming out. It's out of print. Why? Who the fuck knows? Sorry. Why? Nobody understands this stuff. There seems to be no plan here. There are some Dan Jurgens Thor stuff out there, but this always feels. Sorry, I'm really upset by this. It always feels like free money. You dumbasses! It's free money. You own all the content. You just got to collect it and put it out. Like, what are you doing? This is the cheapest, easiest thing for you to go and just keep making money off. But you let stuff go out of print. You put nothing in place. You're idiots.
There you go. Perch is not happy. And thank you very much to Lane Kramer for supporting the channel. We also got Fatal J saying Zack Snyder, sir. Whatever. What do you have to say about Zack Snyder, Eric Breen? Please don't let it be positive.
That's Zack Snyder means slightly more to me than Star Wars.
Wow.
So Mike,
I just don't have a dog in the fight.
Thank you for supporting the channel, Fatal J. Zack Snyder's DCEU was a travesty, and I do believe his Justice League will be just as bad, if not worse, than Joss Whedon's. But thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it.
I think it'll be better.
And then, it's 4 hours. Get out of here. And thank you to Ryan Wilson for the $4.99 super chat. People want to see a Batman story where he's a detective and solve mysteries. Why don't we? I agree with that. Are we ready for a Batman detective story?
Dude, that's the only kind of Batman I want to see on my screen ever. And making a TV show. I mean, how cheap would it be to do that? And then every once in a while, just like in Gotham Central, add the police in, and it would be, whoo-hoo. Think Magnum PI, just without, the mustache.
Oh, I'm thinking darker. I'm thinking
darker.
Magnum PI.
But I mean,
take Seven, take the movie Seven, and add, the elements of Seven, and then add Batman.
I can see a 10-episode FX series or something like that.
Batman Blackface File, perfect TV show or streaming service.
I think all detective type stuff is available because, back when Grant Morrison did Batman, they did that Island Black Glove story, and it was kind of like 10 little Indians, and the Agatha Christie novel, and all mystery is available to Batman, as dark and as light as you want it. I think Detective Batman the series, and you can have different people play the role after a while. It really doesn't matter, I just am sick of the Joker personally.
I agree. So thank you very much to Ryan Wilson for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Now we are, basically at the end of the show here. It's time for some comic book recommendations. Breen, you got anything to recommend to the viewers today on what they should be reading?
Yeah, since I always go old, this came out last week. It's a Hulk Epic Collection that covers issues 138 through 156. And I've been reading it the past couple days, and some good stuff in here.
That is awesome.
Oh. All right, Paley, what are you recommending out of the shop?
I'm still going to keep pushing the True Believers stuff. Keep buying it. I'm going to say it every single week. Keep buying the True Believers. It's awesome. Awesome stuff. It'll get you prime for other series that came out, from the 80s, 90s, and you'll be able, if they're coming out with something in True Believers, that means it's going to have some impact on the current comics that are out. They have a rhyme and a reason to this kind of stuff. And Last God, keep buying it. It's fantastic. It's the best thing that they've got going right now as far as from DC, as well as new Swamp Thing. And from Marvel, King in Black. It's really, really good, and the associated title with it are great. It's like people don't usually buy the associated books with a limited series like this, but they're actually adding to it, and it's expensive, but there's a good payoff with it. So
there you go. Skip and Tosh is recommending Firepower number 7. Perch, what are you recommending this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I liked Erratic. I think we talked about AWA earlier. I thought that was a solid book, telling a good story over there. I think that over in DC, I did enjoy Green Lantern, but I kind of like Green. I think it reminded me of this Legion of Superheroes 5 years later arc that came out a long time ago. You can find that actually reasonably easy in trade. The original issue is going to be very, very difficult, but I think that's a great read. And this is one of those cases where you jump into that. It feels very different. It feels very odd. It really encourages you to read forward and backward in that run. And so I think if, especially with everything that's going on in Future State, if you want to see how you do it right, how you handle something of a glimpse in the future that's very off-putting and strange, that's the GOAT. I love that run, and I think they did a really good job with it. So there's a lot of little good things out there. Again, a little bit of something for everybody.
Well, then I want to say thank you to Kenneth Dowling for the $5 super chat. Wes, I wish your son the best of health. Have a good week, guys. And Perch, City of Bruce, yes, LOL. So thank you very much for all the well wishes. My son got out of the hospital last week. We still, he's still a little under the weather, still, on meds and things like that. But he should be off his medication tomorrow. He's in good spirits. I think everybody in the house had a little bit of a stomach bug this week, but we seem to be coming out of it. I think Perch might have been going through something similar over there in his neck of the woods. So thank you so much. Like the outpouring of well wishes for my son was very, very welcomed and it definitely touched me. So thank you all very much for that.
Awesome.
And who else we got? Yule, what do you recommend this week?
I also like Erratic. What is it? Carrie Randolph? Is it that who the writer artist is?
Kari Andrews.
Kari and I can't remember which one's which. All these K guys. That one's really good. I always say Copra. Michel Fife is now doing it through his Etsy store. So it's not an Image comic book, but I still recommend it if you want a creator-owned superhero independent book. It's the best one out there. And I also, HaHa, number one. If you can find it.
Great. Yeah.
If you can find that, good luck. Get them.
Get all my recommendations.
Get extras. Because I'm sure Pele could tell you that it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very good. I
underordered.
It was, of course it was.
Oh my God.
But it was so good.
Don't you wish you had a time machine for that shit?
Yeah, I knew I could have. You know, certain things are probably going to be or could have a possibility of being hot, and you should get more. But these days, especially, it's just even with returnability, my anus puckers.
Yeah. There you go. They don't return the money immediately. That's for certain.
Yeah, it's all credit.
Not at all.
So most of the books I would recommend have already been put out there. What was the thing? No, that would have been them. Next week we do have Larry Hama returning to Marvel Comics for Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, and then Peter David's Maestro sequel, Maestro War of Pax also starts. Definitely be looking out for those because, hey, if the new writers at Marvel aren't your thing, the old writers at Marvel might be your thing, and I imagine those would be really good.
Well, I left the Super Sons for you because I figured you'd slam dunk that one, but you know.
I'm waiting for the Super Sons to have a larger thing because my son likes to binge comic books. If I show him one episode or issue or just 2 or 3, he gets upset. So I'm waiting for it to be over. And we're going to read them all together.
Fair enough.
There you go. So thank you so much for joining us. We had a nice live panel, lots of good discussion. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for supporting the channel, and Salamat Po.
Wash your ass.